I'm Carl Cangelosi, and today we're interviewing the founders of Westfield Mediation, a successful divorce mediation business. They're Randi Albert and Michelle Weinberg. Let me start by asking each of you to tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Okay. I'm Randi Albert, and I am a lawyer. I decided to go into divorce mediation a couple of years ago. I had done family law when I was in law school and legal aid, and I wanted to get back to it. And I did some research, and it looked like mediation was the way to go. And so I took the NJPM course, I think in 2010, and then I was looking to work with someone else. So I started talking to Michelle, who I had met at my kids' preschool, and convinced her to take the course.
So I'm Michelle Weinberg. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of New Jersey. I, prior to this, worked as a therapist. I worked with children. I worked with adults, couples, and families, always in a nonprofit setting. As part of that work, I ran a program for couples who were post-divorce high conflict. So they were always going back to court because they couldn't decide which pediatrician to use or which sport the kids should play. And they were constantly bombarding the judges who got frustrated with these kinds of issues and created this program, which I helped run. And then I moved to New Jersey and I met Randi and heard about mediation. And I thought, oh, this would be a great way to help new couples not become those old couples that were the high conflict post-divorce people. So philosophically, it made a lot of sense for me to do mediation. So I stopped doing therapy and joined Randi, and now all we do is divorce mediation at Westfield Mediation.
Excellent. Now, let me start with, when did you actually open your office?
In 2011. In 2011, we started in the January. We put together a business plan so that we would have a partnership agreement, and we set out all of that first. And then we found a place to have a virtual office because we weren't sure yet whether we should invest in an office until we had some people coming in the door.
So from the time you started in 2011, let's back up. How long did the planning stage take?
So I think I took the course in 2010. I think I took it in the fall of 2010, and you took it the year before. And I think we did some pre-planning before that January date, and then we also kept planning as we continued in the beginning stages of the marketing thing and figuring more and more out as we went. But the partnership agreement and sort of the business plan we had before January of 2011.
Okay. Randi, when you took the 40-hour course, you probably remember that Andrew Dasani always says, do a business plan, do a business plan. Had you already done a business plan by then?
No.
Or did you do one afterwards?
Yeah, after the course, and not really until Michelle and I decided together to form up, because our business plan is a partnership agreement, and I wasn't really sure what it was going to look like. And so I started putting things together based on what I had from the course, but I didn't have a, the thing with mediation is that when you take the course, you don't really know what it is that you know and you don't know until you start doing it. And then you start realizing where the gaps are and where you have to work and create things.
Mm-hmm.
We also went to the SCORE program at a local community college that was helpful in laying out specifically what is a business plan, what are the steps, what do you need to do, here's what you do next. And that helped us formulate a business plan as well. It sort of gives you a play-by-play.
So was doing a business plan important to you? Was it valuable in getting you going, keeping you on track?
I think keeping us more on track in terms of, we didn't have a complete business plan before we started, because like Randi said, you don't always know what you don't know until you're going through it. And then as we continued, I would say in the first 6 months, we really worked a lot of that out and figured out more marketing strategies and things like that once we got started.
Okay. Now tell us about your business plan. It's not that you were jumping into doing this full time. it was sort of a plan that transitioned you into doing it full time. Is that right?
Well, neither one of us do it full time now, because we still have responsibilities at home that are a priority as well. But yes, I think the business plan helped us figure out where we need to strategize, what we're good at, what we're not good at, where do we need help, who can help us, what don't we know, what do we know, and sort of guide us.
So how many years did this plan cover? Is it just we were going to get going, or did this say something like, we have a plan that's going to take us from 2011 to some period of time when our kids are grown, et cetera?
Our plan is constantly evolving, really. I mean, we've learned as we go, and we're always in touch. So we keep track of how many people are calling us. We keep track of how many people come in and how long they stay. We do a lot of data tracking, and that way we can see where we know which months are usually the most popular. We know which months are usually slow. We know where, if we feel like we're not getting enough traffic, then we work on our marketing. So it's a constantly evolving process, but we're just constantly in touch too, to kind of, to assess where we are. And we kind of more officially meet like every month when we pay ourselves for the month, but, and then we go through like what's going on for the month, how that month was, how it compared to prior months, what we need to do going forward.
Okay.
So to answer your question in a more concrete way, we have not revisited sort of our written plan, like what did we write in 2011 and how is that different now? But we do have verbal conversations about sort of the state of our business all the time.
Has it developed like you expected it would?
So we had a marketing strategy that has not panned out how we thought it would. So we did have to readjust. We found that most of our clients find us online. So we had to have a much stronger online presence than we initially thought. We thought more referrals would come from other sources. And also people are more interested in some concrete information like what do we charge, where are we located, and do we have evening hours? More so than some of the other strategies we thought, like our level of education, people are less interested.
Right, and we also thought that what was special about us was that we were a lawyer and a therapist, and people would like that. And some people do, but for the most part, they're like, where are you located? How much does it cost? And
do you have a waiting list? When can I come?
Yeah, it's more about the logistics. So and also it's definitely an online, and we get most of our clients online. So the online marketing has become a crucial part of the business plan. So
what percentage of your clients come from the internet versus some other way?
Large majority.
Yeah, I would say like 80%.
I was going to say 75, 80%.
Yeah, 80% or so from the web. And then now that we've been doing it for a while, we get referrals from prior clients. We have built up a network of people that we know, therapists, lawyers, collateral people, but mostly most people either come from former clients or from online. Do you agree?
Yes.
And what did you originally think it was going to be like?
Well, originally we thought, we didn't realize that we were going to need to do so much online. We actually thought, we might have to advertise in newspapers. We had put up one of our failed marketing strategies was that we put up a banner in the local JCC, thinking that people would see our name and they would call us. I don't really know if that generated any calls. Maybe it was helpful in getting our name out there, but it didn't seem like no one said, oh, I saw your name on the wall and that's why I'm here. So most people say they went online, and we've actually worked to make our website to be more comprehensive, more user-friendly, and easy to find. So that's really where we focused our energy.
I think we all have stories of failed marketing. I did one with business cards that had magnets on the back thinking that people would put them on their refrigerators. Well, you know, not a good idea, because someday you come down and you say, what is this mediation doing on my refrigerator? And, you know, someone says, well, I've been meaning to tell you. It's not well thought through.
Right.
So what, do you ever co-mediate?
We do not.
Why
So, that's just not the business plan that we came up with. We found that we would prefer to do it more individually. But we have had people who call and say, oh, I want to work with the one who's the therapist, or I want to work with the one who's the lawyer, or opposite. I don't want the therapist and I don't want the lawyer. And so they have the option to choose who they want. And we thought that that would be a great marketing tool and a benefit. And again, most people don't have an interest or preference either way, and they take who, you know, oh, I answered the phone today, so they happen to speak to me and they end up meeting with me.
I think also another reason we don't do it together is that it would wind up being 3 women and 1 man in the room, and it may seem a little imbalanced to the man. So that was another thought. We don't really want someone to feel overwhelmed in the beginning. We do consult each other behind the scenes, so we share experience that way, but we don't actually are not in the room together.
Do you share documents like intake forms, MOU templates, all of that?
Yes.
With each other, yeah. But they've evolved also over time. And it's actually kind of funny how they've evolved, because we both started from the same course. So we kind of started with the same template, and they don't look exactly the same anymore. Mine are more lawyerly and Michelle's are more therapy.
But only very slightly.
Yeah, but they're essentially the same format, but they just take they just look a little bit different. And but we share intake forms, and when we have each other look at our stuff.
So if I've done an MOU, Randy then reads it over and edits and has comments, and you know, maybe go back to the client and then clarify this or put in that or take out this.
That way we take advantage of each other's experience.
Right, and I do the same for her.
Okay, so Michelle, do you make Randy's MOUs a little softer, and Randy, do you make Michelle's a little more legalistic? Or
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes, you know, only minor edits are needed anymore.
Right.
Okay. What was it like, your first mediation?
Not that great. Not that great. You know, I feel like that we're much better now, that the people who get us now are luckier than the people who had us in the beginning, because we were much through a little bit. Seen a lot of different personality types, so we're better able to handle it. We learned some things that work, some tricks. In the beginning, you know, it was easier to remember the person's facts because there's only 1 or 2 people. But aside from that, I think that we have become just better at it, don't you?
Absolutely. You know, it's the same as when I got out of grad school and I had to start therapy. Those first few clients were probably not my best work. And, you know, 10 years into therapy, I'm a much better therapist than I was as a newbie out of grad school. So I feel the same thing about being a mediator coming right out of the class. I sort of knew what I was doing and I fumbled through and got it done. But if those same clients came today with the same situation, they probably get a better result from my work.
Right. It sounds like the 2 of you were lucky in as much as you had each other to talk to.
Absolutely.
Have you reached out to other members of, say, NJPM as you're going along to say, you know, throw out, ask for guidance, ask for opinions, etc.?
Well, Carl, we've reached out to you.
Yes, you did.
And you have been very helpful.
Right.
We have found that having each other is a wonderful experience, sort of on the day-to-day, but on a more global experience, you know, you've helped us sort of sometimes check in once a year or every other year and just see sort of what the state of the state is and tweak this or don't do that or something like that.
Yeah, I was very impressed when you did that for a couple of reasons. One is it showed, I think, that you were very open to other people's experience, etc. But I think it was also very good for you to become known as people who do that. So my opinion of you went up greatly because you reached out to me. It makes me feel good. But it also says, you're really dedicated to your profession and you really want to improve. So I think that's really great. Have you found other people that were willing to do that? Or maybe you find like the peer groups, you find them valuable?
Well, we go to the lunches occasionally, the Union County NJPM lunch, and we get some ideas from there about how people are doing, how running their business.
Mm-hmm.
Anything.
We've had, through other just marketing groups that we're members of. So I'm a member of the New Jersey Association of Women Therapists. So I've, had people who are maybe interested in hearing more about mediation. So I'm always open to talking to them about it and giving them my experience and letting them call me or meet with me whenever, is convenient.
Okay. Talk a little bit about like year one, year two. What was it like in terms of clients, etc.?
So year one, I would say the first 6 months we had no clients, right?
I think we had one.
Maybe we had one. And it was right. And so most of that time was spent creating our forms and tweaking them and figuring out our marketing and just doing a lot of the business side of it, less so than the actual work. And after that, once we got that first couple of clients in, it started to get a little more consistent, but not like it is now. And then year two, so each year we've built upon the past year. Year over year, we've improved in the number of clients and the number of people who stay and complete the MOU, and we track all that. So the first year was probably
a handful.
Yeah,
people.
a handful of people.
Handful for each of you or handful total?
I would say handful total.
Right. Yeah, I would say handful total. I think it took us, we started the business, we had put some money into it, and I think we made it back the first year, but we didn't make any new money the first year. So, if that's kind of a measure, there weren't that many people coming in.
But we didn't lose money.
Right. So that's positive. I think, and then after that, it's really gone up steadily. And then I think what happened, maybe in like year 5, it was the big increase in the number of clients. And I think part of that was that we started getting referrals from former clients, and we started to have enough of a base of clients that they would refer people they knew. And so instead of just having to find all new people, we started a new way of getting people to come in. And that's what really made things grow.
Right. So I think, in that business class that we took, they said small businesses typically take about 5 years to really establish themselves. And that's exactly what we found.
Okay. So the adage of, don't quit your day job.
Oh, definitely not.
Don't do that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would say if you're going to mediate, you either have to, and you can't count on that to be your complete job. Or you should either add it on to another job or, expect to not really make it a full-time career for the beginning part.
But are you working towards making it a full-time career?
I am not. I have 4 kids at home that are still relatively young, and probably by the time I'm ready to make it a full-time career, I'll be ready to retire.
Okay, so this is a permanent part-time career.
For me,
I
yes.
think so.
For both
yeah,
of us, I think
so. But we still are growing it, and we could, we're still in the growing stage, but I don't think it would ever be full-time. I mean, I'm not really picturing that.
Right.
Okay.
We're busy, but we're busy for part-time.
Okay. So are you doing this to make money?
Yes.
Yes. I see the eyes go, yes. Okay, very much so.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, we're doing it to make money. And we're doing it so that, we think it's a good thing to do. We think we believe in mediation.
Mhm.
So we're doing it because we believe in mediation and we think it's a great alternative and we're trying to help people. We are also trying to make a business out of it. Yes.
And it allows us to have that work-life balance that's very important to both of us.
Right, and we're in charge, so we make our own schedule, and we work it around our other commitments, and it falls into place.
So if you did want to make it into a full-time business,
Mm-hmm.
do you think it would be a full-time job?
Yes, I think if you combined both of our efforts, it is a full-time job.
Okay. And how much money do you think you could make out of this if you kept growing
Mm-hmm.
and you really want it to be a full-time job?
So I don't think you can make like $1 million, right? And that's up to you. So I think everybody is a little bit different. So they could, it really depends on, your hourly rate and how many hours you're billing for a client and how long it takes you and things like that. Generally for us, it takes about 10 to 15 hours on average for a client to come from start to finish. And that includes about 4 to 6 meetings.
Okay. So, and how many do you do a year?
Well, I don't remember what our was last year. Do you?
About 50 people come in.
Start to finish.
No, start to finish. No, not everybody goes start to finish. And sometimes people leave and then they come back the following year. But I would say we had about 40 to 50 people come in and
30 maybe?
30 maybe finish, yeah.
Okay.
Because we do get some people who come the first time and then they hear all the information we have about divorce and mediation and they panic and then they never come back.
Right, and then some people start and stop. They come and they're like not really ready. I mean, it's,
And then they call 6 months later and 6 months after that. And eventually.
I mean, I think one thing we always say also is that, we're not selling divorce. Like, if you don't want to get divorced, that's fine. We're selling mediation. If you want to get divorced, this is the way to go. But if you don't want to get divorced, that's okay too.
Right. Okay. But if you were doing this full time, do you think you could get it up to say 50 cases each, 30 cases each, if you were working at it like a regular job?
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Yes to which? 50, 30?
Oh.
I would say start with 30.
Right.
And then work towards 50.
Right. I mean, if you're trying to get a range of how much cases or how much money you would make, I mean, I think that if you, over time, it would be like, in the low, what would be like? I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, again, it depends on what you charge and, the amount of time it takes you to do the work.
Right.
Do you think you're exceptional in the sense of you seem to have built something that's a real business? It meets your objectives. You seem to have a good reputation because clients are referring people to you.
Mm-hmm.
So things are going well. That is not the average story of the divorce mediator who takes the 40-hour course. It's just not.
Okay.
Why are you different?
Well, thank you for that, first of all.
You are different.
That is lovely to hear. I think part of it is because we have each other, so that when one of us is maybe a little frustrated or concerned, the other one is there to pick the other one up and say, let's keep going, we can do this. And especially in the beginning, we sort of help each other a lot in that manner. I think that we're smart business women who, when we hit a stumbling block, find a different way or, go right or left, whatever we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think we really enjoy the work. So we want it to work. Like this, like I said, again, gives us a lot of choice in our life for the freedom of the work-life balance. And it also is work that we enjoy. So we want it to work. So we're willing to put in the effort to make it work.
Yeah, and I think our partnership together has been very successful because we both are people who like to put in the work, and it's never like, well, one person is not doing their part. It's always like both of us saying, well, we need to do this. Who's going to do it? And we're both signing up. So I think it's just kind of, it's lucky to find someone who's on the same wavelength with us. I mean, a lot of what's made it work is the luck of finding each other.
Okay. We're going to do a little more questioning, and then if people who are viewing this have any questions, please use the chat function, and those questions will come up, and we'll see if we can get those answered as well. So, Michelle, being a mental health professional,
Yes.
what are the strengths that you brought to mediation? And on the other side is, what are the things you perhaps struggled with a little bit more than others?
Right. So I think my experience working with the high conflict post-divorce couples gave me a great understanding of where these people could end up if mediation, you know, is an epic fail and they have to go through litigation for years and years and years. So I think that perspective has helped me give a nice framework to the couples that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
I think it also helps me deal with some of the more difficult personalities that sometimes come through the door. And it certainly has helped me deal with the crying. You know, when clients cry, I can tolerate it much better than Randy.
There's no crying in the law.
So, Randy, you've learned you have to have a box of tissues.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I'm like, what is this crying? We're here to make an agreement.
And then, right. And so some of the struggles that I've had is, you know, someone will ask me a direct question and I feel like, oh, maybe I should know that. If I were a lawyer, I might know that. And I have to say, oh, that's a great question. I don't know, you know, ask your attorney, which I might say anyway if it were appropriate, but the confidence is not there as well as much.
Do you find that when you say that to a client, they get upset or they say, well, you should know? They do?
Yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
And then sometimes they're like, okay.
Okay. And are you comfortable with conflict when the couples, say, are arguing, et cetera? That doesn't bother you, I assume.
It doesn't. I mean, sometimes it does, but most of the time it's tolerable. And, you know, some of the things you use in therapy, you use in mediation as well, such as silence, you know, and just waiting for a moment and see how that unfolds, that it's okay to not have everyone talking every second of the meeting. And that's something that you use in therapy as well.
All right. Okay, Randy, same questions to you.
Okay. Well, it's the emotional part that's been the hardest for me because I am very, my training is much more practical. I am good at problem solving. The legal training makes you good at problem solving. I'm good at writing. I can write things up very quickly and efficiently. That's where my skill set is. The emotional part. So in a way, you know, Michelle does best in meeting, and I do best outside of meeting, writing up the agreement. But so that's been the harder part, all dealing with the emotional part.
Have you evolved? Is it getting easier?
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, definitely. I mean, in the beginning, I was like, you know, it was quite shocking, all this emotion. but now, you know, I'm used to it, and I have developed some skills. And I've talked to Michelle, and I've gotten a lot of her experience to guide me. And so that's yeah. So it's definitely been a learning experience. But I mean, now I've dealt with so many different kind of emotional outbursts that I'm better at dealing with them and coming up with a way around them. And
you also see a lot of the same emotions coming out time after time.
Right.
Situations actually are somewhat similar sometimes too. So the first time it's more shocking, and now you're more sort of.
Yeah, I think it also helps the client when you're like able to say, well, what you're feeling is normal because I just saw it yesterday, you know, so they don't feel bad too, you know, as opposed to when you're just like, oh my gosh.
Randy, what kind of lawyer were you?
Oh, well, I started out doing public interest communications work at the FCC and at Georgetown and representing people before the FCC and teaching communications law, not family law. I did family law in law school at the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau. I was in charge of the family law working group there. So that was my family law background. But after that, I was doing communications law. And then when I decided to go I've done a bunch of other things, teaching and helping in medical legal partnerships. But when I decided to go back to something to start, I really wanted to start my own project so I would have that kind of autonomy that we have and be able to set our schedule and be able to start it from scratch and make something. And that's when I decided to go back to the family law part.
Okay. So you were never a litigator, or would never what you might call an adversarial attorney?
No. I mean, I was in court, but on the policy making. Oh, I did policy making, not adversarial. No.
Okay. Well, I'll go to you first, Michelle. Do you caucus with your clients?
No, I never do.
Never.
And that is probably my therapy background, because I didn't do that in therapy either.
Okay. How about you, Randy?
No, we don't. We try to make everything out in the open. In fact, we have on our intake form a little part that says, you know, is there anything you want me to know? And when people say, well, what should I put in that space? And I say, well, that's going to be the start and end of our private conversation. So if there's something private you want to tell me, and people do have private thoughts they would want to share, that's where you put it. Because after that, we're all in it together.
And you have not found that to be a problem?
No.
No.
Okay. Okay, now I'm going to go to some of the questions that people have asked. The first one is from Anju Jasani, and she says, I was wondering how your training with NJPM's 40-hour class prepared you.
So the NJAPM class, that binder that you get, that thick white binder that
Yes.
you get at the class, was invaluable for our first year. So it had all the forms that we would need.
Right.
And again, it was a basis. We sort of tweaked them to make it work for us. But that binder was very helpful in helping us establish things. And having said that, there were also things that the course doesn't cover that we were like, the first year, just like in graduate school, you know, things that they teach you is not really what happens in a therapy session. So some of the things that the course covered did not cover what happened in the meeting. So that's why it was so helpful that we had each other, especially that first year. But the materials that you get are just so helpful to helping you take that next step to make your practice a reality.
And also the network of people, because that's how we.
Yeah, that's how we found you.
Yeah, that's how we found you. And that's how we, you know, if we have a question, we have a place to go with our question. And I think that's really important.
Good. Okay, next one is, how did you find each other? You haven't known each other, I guess, you're not childhood friends.
No,
So-
our children were in the same preschool.
Right, we
that's what-
started talking on the playground. What kind of work did you do? And then I said, oh, you know, I am a lawyer, but I'm not really practicing. I'm thinking about doing this. And Michelle said, you know, she was a therapist, and, you know, she was thinking about starting up something as well. And so we just started talking about it.
Right. Randy had taken the class and she said, oh, you should take the class. And so I took the class and I said, you're right. This is fantastic. Let's do this. So it was just an innocent conversation on the playground while our little kids were running around.
So was the driving function to get away from your kids for a part of the day? Is that it?
Well, I had twins. They were my third and fourth kid. So I was home. I was not working.
Right.
And I thought, I can't do this forever. I want to get back to working. But really doing therapy with children requires you to be available in the afternoon and the evenings. And that's not when I was available anymore. And so this opportunity really made sense to sort of leave therapy, but still help people.
Okay. Let's see. If you didn't know each other, this is another question. How did you trust each other to create a business together?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
It was somewhat of a leap of faith, but I think that, you know, we were friendly with each other so that we sort of knew, and then we could, in the process of putting together the business plan, meet and discover what our strengths and weaknesses were and how we could help each other. And we started to realize that we worked pretty well together.
Yeah, and I think when we first started, our initial business plan is much more formal than our relationship now, because we didn't know each other. So it had all these clauses in it, you know, if one person decides to leave, what would happen? And, just different, much more formal language for someone who is not your friend. And now that, you start working together for a long time, a lot of that, if we made a business plan now, it wouldn't necessarily be the same formalistic language.
Okay. You said that 75 to 80% of your business is from online.
Yeah.
What did you do to drive more business to your website?
So we created a website, that's first and foremost, and we made sure that it was user-friendly for the computer, for the phone, for iPads, however you want to access it.
Mm-hmm.
We used key terms that we found might be helpful to people, what they were researching and how that could be helpful to lead them to our website. We constantly check in on our website and make sure
Right.
that it's updated.
Right.
And
we did hire a SEO marketing person to help
Yes.
us to make sure that we're listed on a lot of different sites behind the scenes, and that just improves our ability to come up when people search. Originally, when we wrote our website, we wrote it, and then there's this. I think Google has something that tells you what education level your website language is.
Right.
And
What was it?
it was way high.
Too high.
ours was way too high.
Yeah, so we had to change the language so be more accessible to people who don't say accessible. And so we changed the language to make it more welcoming. And
Yeah, we've added so now you can email us or you can push a button to call us.
Right.
There are certain ways that we've made it more user-friendly over time that we've discovered.
and we blog regularly so that our website is always updated.
Do you spend a lot of money on your website?
No.
Very little, just the domain name and the and then we belong to a couple of different search sites, but not very much. In fact, the business, one great thing about this business, in addition to all the things we've already talked about, is that it's very low overhead.
Right. All you need is a few chairs and a room, and you're in business. Okay. What percent of the parties who start the process get to the final MOU review stage? Question one. Well, let's answer that first.
Okay, so
we track that, and it varies year to year, but it's around 75%, 60 to 75%, depending on the year.
right. And one thing that we learned actually over time from talking to other people was that we break down our process into smaller pieces, and we charge along the way. So we don't just charge at the end at the MOU, we charge for the pieces of the parenting plan or
The spreadsheet.
the financial plan, so that even if people don't get from A to Z, it's not like we've only charged them for that initial meeting. We charge them along the way.
Okay. So
And I would say that 60 to 75% are people who have come more than once. So the people who come more than once, we sort of discount as sort of not in the
Mode.
not in the statistical, calculation. So
I'll my own follow-up to that question, which is, do you find that some people get almost to the end, they have everything, but they never really finish with you, and maybe you have the feeling they just thought it was good enough and they went off to attorneys?
occasionally, but it's like when they have one minor thing left. It's really, they do almost, if they're going that far in the process, they usually finish with us, and then maybe tweak one or two things with the attorneys.
Okay, so here's another question. What's the most difficult current issue for you? Finances or credit issues, custody, or what?
You mean that of the clients?
I don't know. I'm just reading. So I'm not sure either.
Right. Okay. Well, the client issues, generally clients are in agreement about parenting more than the money. The money is usually more of a sticking point.
And I would say most people who come to mediation more than once it's self-selecting. So it is they are of the mindset that they are ready to make concessions and agree with one another about various topics. So there's usually one or two sticking points in the parenting but the rest goes pretty smoothly, and one or two sticking points in the house, of the finances, and the rest go pretty smoothly.
Okay. Michelle, were you always comfortable doing the financial part? Balance sheet? No?
I would say that's the part I had to learn, right? Because I knew how to deal with the people part, but the actual figuring out, and part of that was learning it in the class, and then part of it was learning it as you do it, and Randy helping as well. And that has become more of a strength than it used to be.
So Randy, you were probably more comfortable with that and less comfortable with the crying.
Well, yeah, we still with the financial, if people have like intricate financial questions, we don't pretend to be an expert in all things. And I think, we say that straight out from the beginning. We're going to guide you through this process, but if you have a complicated financial question, we're going to refer you to someone. We're not going to just leave you hanging, but we don't want to answer it for you without the knowledge. So we emphasize that we know what we don't know, and we will refer you to other people who know it. In terms of understanding the background law, that's not as complicated, but we just, I guess that answers the question.
Okay. When I first started mediating, let me backstep. My background is law, where I practiced for 22 years and I ran businesses. But when I first started mediating, some of the things that would go through my mind were, well, I wonder who would win this if they tried it. I don't think about those things anymore. They never even enter my mind. I'm wondering if some of the things that you initially would run through your mind are no longer relevant or important to you. For example, Michelle, do you try to figure out what's wrong with these people?
I don't. I do ask, do you have a therapist? Because I can refer one. I know people in the area that might be able to help you through this. But no, I don't generally diagnose people.
Okay. You don't, did you at the beginning or?
So I would say to Randy, oh my God, this person's so depressed, but like she would notice that also. It's not like a clinical diagnosis in that sense.
I think what's been harder about it is that, as the mediator, you can't really decide or tell them what to do. And if I were their lawyer or, in a different position, I would be more inclined to tell them what to do. And they're not really there for that, So sometimes that's what runs through my head that I don't say, I can, in my head, come up with a great way to wrap this all up in a nice little bow, but that's not the process, and that's not why they're there. They're not really there so that I tell them what to do.
Okay. You mentioned that you include an area on the intake form to communicate something privately, but nothing is private thereafter. What do you do with the private communications? Number one, what type of comments do people submit on that section of the intake? And does it eventually come out or get resolved during the sessions?
So yes and yes. So sometimes people say so we specifically ask if there's a history of domestic violence, and some people put it under that section or they put it on the other section. Some people say, oh, the spouse had an affair. They want someone to know that the spouse had an affair.
It wasn't their fault. It's the other person's fault.
Right. They want they want us to know that they're there because they want this done quickly. They want it done to save money, something that's important to them of why they're there for mediation. And yes, almost always it comes out at some point during the process.
Okay. What advice would you give someone looking to start a business and mediate full-time?
Get a website, for
Yep.
sure. Get a mentor. And track what works, what doesn't work, how you're doing, all the statistics, who's calling, where are they coming from, how are they finding you, things like that.
How much time did you put in on this in the beginning? you didn't have many clients, but you must have been doing something with respect to this. How much time were you putting in?
A work week. Like we worked as hard then as we do now, just on different aspects of the business.
So you spent the time. So how many, 20 hours a week, 40 hours a week?
Oh, no, I would say that.
No, not 40 hours a week.
No, we probably work between 15 to 20 hours a week.
Yes.
And we do that whether or not we have meetings with clients. And if we don't have meetings with clients, to, update our LinkedIn, or,
Have webinars.
go to webinars, go to meetings, go to outside networking things, just explore other things that are possibly out there.
And are you disciplined about saying, okay, these are 20 hours, I'm going to devote them every week. If I don't have clients, I don't have to write an MOU, I'm going to do something else.
I don't think we track it so that, oh my God, I've only done 17 hours this week. I have to get to 20. We do what needs to get, we're very good about making sure of what we need to do and talking about it and say, all right, well, I'll do this and you do that. Oh, you have more clients this week, so I'll do X, Y, and Z.
And I think that's part of being with someone else, is that if you see that the other person is doing something, it kind of motivates us, even if we don't have some appointment that day. If I know Michelle has appointments, then I'm like, well, Michelle's working, so I should really be doing something.
I'm not quite sure what this question means. Current issues that clients have.
All of them.
Right.
You haven't noticed any change in the issues being presented?
No, I mean, parenting and the financials and, child support, spousal support.
Right. I think spousal support is always very emotional. I think for most couples, spousal support is a big sticking point, and it takes a lot of the mediation focus.
Are people beginning to talk about that next year alimony will not be tax deductible?
So we tell them that. They don't seem, one of my clients knew, but that's about it. Most of the clients don't know.
Okay. There's an upcoming webinar, by the way, on that topic, which I think will be very interesting.
Yeah.
How much money does it typically take to get a mediation business started?
So we thought it would take more than it does. So we put in, I think we $10,000 maybe, and it didn't cost that. Again, we are very cost conscious. So we do a very low rent because we do a virtual office. We have, a shared secretary, and we rent the room as we need it.
Right. Our phone line is free because it's through Google Voice.
Right. Our website is minimal. So the costs were less than we anticipated.
One thing that we do, which you should do when you start a business, is that you have to keep a certain amount of money always in reserve in the bank, because, and I would definitely say if you're starting this kind of business, because it's so unpredictable, especially in the beginning. So we always have enough money in the bank to cover like 6 months of expenses. Even now, when we wouldn't, just because we're conservative.
And we've never had to use it. We've never had to use our reserve.
But we like to keep that. There. It's kind of a safety net.
When someone makes an appointment or starts the process over the internet, how do you decide which of you gets the client?
So one of us is, unless they specifically request one of us is sort of manning the phone.
Right. One of us is always the person on. So that way, otherwise we wouldn't know if the other person responded. I mean, we don't want to double respond or no one respond. So, we always have a designated person. And then we switch it off regularly depending on how much work piles up so that it's even.
Okay. Do you ever keep in contact with past clients, and how?
We do not.
Okay.
Are you seeing?
No, we don't keep in touch with people. We don't really even know, for the most part, what happens after they leave us, unless we
hear from their attorneys.
Yeah.
Are you seeing any post-judgment cases coming back to you for mediation?
Yes.
No, not from us though.
Oh, from us? No,
Yes.
no, but we
Okay.
deal with post-divorce mediation.
Right. And most people who come for post-divorce mediation are coming because the court said they had to, and they're not really so into mediation. So they don't necessarily have the best outcomes.
And they usually have something very specific that they
Right,
want to
right.
address, and it's, very.
Okay.
So we haven't had our own people come back
No.
yet. That would be.
Oh, you did have that one.
One time when people came back, they weren't ordered by the court, but they did come back because they wanted to change their spousal
Alimony,
support.
Mhm.
It had turned out that one of them was getting a lot of spousal support and then had an inheritance that they weren't expecting and didn't feel like they needed as much. So they renegotiated it.
Okay. It says, I didn't catch the website and online presence you use. I'm not sure what that is. What is your website address?
www.westfieldnjmediation.com.
Okay. I thought you mentioned some of this is free. Is that correct? Do you offer a free half-hour consultation?
No,
Anything
we
free?
do
Nothing free.
Nothing's free.
So how
No,
do,
we, in the first meeting, we explain how divorce works, how mediation works, and sort of the agreement to mediate, the nuts and bolts of Westfield mediation, and we start
Mhm.
planning for future meetings. And we feel that all that information is pretty valuable, and we expect clients to pay for our time and our information that we share.
So I will say that that is a big question. So when people call, you should be ready with that answer, because a lot of people are looking for free. And if you don't say up front that it is not free, they sometimes come confused and don't expect to pay.
Mhm. How much time do you spend with them on the phone as opposed to just getting them into your office?
So when someone first calls, we're only speaking with one person, so
Mhm.
that's less than ideal. We like to speak with both people directly, and we explain that on the phone. So we give, a few minutes of information about how the process works, and we answer, a couple of questions they may have, but then that's about it. We don't spend a ton of time with them on the phone.
And if they start going into their story, we try to kind of tell them that we don't really want to get too immersed in it, because we want it to be neutral. So, yeah.
We have to speak with both parties.
Okay. This is a clarification to a prior question. What the questioner means is, how do you keep costs down with an online presence? What services do they use, Google or something else?
Okay, so we're listed on a lot of directories, and all those listings are free.
We created our own website on Weebly, right?
Oh, yeah.
Weebly.
Weebly.com is our website. So, and we do pay for our domain name,
But to create it, I think was not,
yeah,
it
that was
minimal
free.
or free. And we have a Google phone number, which is free.
Mhm.
And then that's it, right? And the blogging. So we blog and we keep that on our website. We do that ourselves, but then we also share the blog with some divorce websites, and we do pay for that.
Are you as cheap in your personal life as you are in your business lives?
No.
It's not cheap.
No?
It's just efficient.
Yeah, we're very efficient.
Okay.
But we need to be efficient in our business life so we can be extravagant in our outside life.
That's right.
Okay,
We
that sounds fair.
take nice vacations.
What is your marketing budget?
So again, we try to do as much free things as possible, and we'll pay whatever we think would add value. So we try to keep it down to, I don't even know.
What our expenses are?
Yeah, what the expenses are. I mean, I would have to look at the overall yearly budget, but it's a couple $1,000.
Yeah, a couple $1,000 for marketing, a couple of $1,000 for rent, and then we have some outside expenses. We pay for insurance, malpractice insurance that we get through NJAPM. We have to keep our licenses up because we're both have professional licenses
and take the classes.
And that, yeah, and do the continuing ed that comes with that. And that's essentially it.
Do you need slip and fall insurance if you're renting the place?
No,
No.
the place has it.
Okay. Well, those are all the questions that I have. Is there anything you'd like to say before we end?
No. Thank
No,
you for
yeah,
letting
and-
us do this. This
Right,
was
and if people
lovely.
have more questions, they can find us online. We are westfieldnjmediation.com, and we're happy to talk to other people who are, interested in learning more about how to set up their business or how to grow it. And yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, it was really a pleasure talking with both of you. I remember both of you from the 40-hour course. You were both engaged. You seemed both determined. And I'm sorry that you had to dumb down your intelligence for going into the mediation business. But it's a real pleasure. And for everyone viewing, please stay tuned because they're going to, not today, but in the future, there will be a lot more webinars, and I hope you enjoyed today's. So thanks to everyone who's watching, and thanks to Michelle and Randy.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good day.
You
too.
too.
Bye.
Bye.